Welcome to another episode of Life Science Solutions Podcast, where we explore the technical, operational, and regulatory challenges shaping the future of the life sciences industry. I'm your host, Chris Adkins. Today, we're discussing why formulation development has become one of the most critical steps in moving promising therapies from the research bench to clinical and commercial manufacturing, and ultimately to patients. Today's discussion is a little special because we're actually working through and talking about the formulation lab that Kymanox has recently announced. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, there are some video interlays of the lab and some of the equipment and capabilities that are already there. Ultimately, every formulation decision that is made early in a process has downstream implications. It can influence stability, manufacturing, scalability, analytical strategy, and ultimately how efficiently a product moves from development into clinical and commercial manufacturing. As therapies become more complex and development timelines continue to shrink, getting formulation right earlier has never been more important. And this is not an unfamiliar topic for the podcast. We've had quite a few episodes over the last 6 or so months about this. To explore this today, I'm joined by two experts from Kymanox. First is Ryan Doxey, Vice President of Technical Services. He leads our pharmaceutical sciences practice as a whole. He has more than 20 years of experience leading pharmaceutical development, CMC strategy, tech transfer, manufacturing, and regulatory initiatives across a wide range of drug products and delivery systems. Frequent listeners will recognize Ryan from previous episodes, including a live episode on high concentration formulation development. Also joining is Matt Owen, Associate Director of CMC and Pharmaceutical Sciences. Matt specializes in formulation development, both for complex injectables, intranasal, inhalation therapies, and has expertise spanning analytical development, GMP manufacturing, and CMC strategy from early development through to commercialization. So Ryan, Matt, welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Chris. Glad to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. So before we get into formulation development, kind of proper, talking about the Kymanox formulation lab, and as some folks who are on video are going to see some stills there, what capability are we building out here, and kind of where does this fit into the overall drug development process?
I can start. This has been a kind of a dream of mine since joining Kymanox, over 8.5 years ago. My entire career has been, in the lab, starting with analytical development and moving quickly into formulation and clinical manufacturing. It's a passion of mine. When I met Matt, I realized it was a passion of his as well. And with him joining Kymanox, I was able to leverage that passion and his expertise to really push to have this. So our goal is to, number one, complement our King of Prussia lab, which focuses on delivery devices. So having the formulation and delivery device capabilities internally, I think is key for our client success. But, combination product aside, the biggest value that we can add is, kind of being that IND enabling formulation development. So our goal is not to, become a contract formulator or manufacturer. It is really science driving success, and leveraging the science. So not, worrying about the QC tests, not worrying about, checking boxes. It's getting down to the characterization of your formulation and having it meet your need, and having optionality as well, right? So, we work with a lot of clients and CMOs. We see the pain points on both sides. And, I've, over the time of working at Kymanox, just seen the need for, a virtual company with no lab capability to have knowledge to transfer into the CMO rather than a concept. Because CMOs typically aren't staffed and built to troubleshoot. They're staffed to, for throughput.
They're staffed to execute.
And execute,
right?
Even at clinical batch stage. I mean, yes, it's not as formal as a commercial stage, but it's still GMP. They still have all the systems, the processes. So it's throughput. Any downtime is lost time.
Yeah.
So, once they hit that troubleshooting, something goes wrong and they don't know why, it triggers,
kind of has a ripple effect.
Moving forward stops. And all the timelines begin to move, to the right big time.
Yeah.
And that's time and money, which is the killer in clinical.
Yeah. And maybe Matt, I'll let you jump in here. And I mean, you have a background from the contract manufacturing space, so whatever you want to add to Ryan's answer.
I mean, 100% what Ryan is stating about what the capabilities of what we're trying to do in the formulation space. I mean, having experience working directly in a contract development manufacturing organization really allows me to have the outlook and insight into those pain points. Mm-hmm. This formulation lab will allow us to have agility. And that's something that CDMOs typically don't have. Mm-hmm. One, because timelines keep slipping, right? There's not enough, adequate time, space, personnel to actually spend the time and develop the formulation properly. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times you see, going into your clinical manufacturing, you'll see issues during your phase 1, phase 2, right? That could have been already solved at the formulation level. And so what we're putting out there is the ability to spend the time, whatever route of administration it is, mm-hmm. right, to develop the right product and the most adequate product that's completely science driven, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. The evolving space and anatomy we're really having a better understanding of what the human body is full of, right? The mechanisms of action, certain areas where the API needs to specifically target. This allows us in this lab to utilize the new knowledge and then apply it directly at the bench. Mm-hmm. And then, in the end, customers or clients will actually see that experience.
Yeah. And so just to plug our mission statement, right? It's because patients deserve better. I mean, so really we're approaching this as our clients deserve better, and also the CMOs deserve better, right? And if you spend more time upfront understanding what you have, it's a lot easier to transfer that over and hit the ground running.
Yeah. Obviously, drug development is already plenty expensive enough and kind of time consuming enough. So, we've seen countless examples of where inadequate kind of, formulation or pre-formulation development has been executed, and then it causes these, ripple on, kind of whether it comes up in phase 1 or in phase 2 as you start thinking about scale up. What kind of issues have you guys seen in the past that ultimately you look back and you think, well, that's because that pre-formulation or that really early kind of characterization work from a formulation perspective wasn't executed on?
Yeah, so I mean, one that comes to mind is so forced degradation, right? So we had a product that was late stage. We're in registration batches doing the leachable study, for the NDA, and a leachable or an unknown peak emerges, at the end of the leachable study that wasn't accounted for in the extractable, right? That's danger right there. So what that means is, either the extraction study wasn't done correctly, yep. or you have something that you have to qualify toxicologically, because it's an unknown. Or luckily, in this case, we were able to actually assign it as a degradant to the drug that was multifactorial. Yeah. So it wasn't just oxidation, it wasn't just heat, it was oxidation and heat. It was heat catalyzed oxidation. But the time that it took to identify that and just stop everything, luckily it didn't derail the entire program, but it added, a lot of downtime and, a lot of concern and heartburn in anticipation of trying to follow this path, and luckily it did, to where we were able to assign it to as a degradation product that we wouldn't see typically in the drug on this accelerated scenario. So, that's one thing. It's you don't know what you don't know. I know that's so cliche, but it's the fact of the matter, right? And our intent is not to test the product, it's to characterize it so that all the different potential interactions that you can have over storage. So really stress things, really look at the bounds and understand, is viscosity and concentration going to mess something up? If they're at the two extremes, or pH and something else, is that going to cause something that you're not expecting? And really understand the interactions between all of those typical CQAs.
Yeah, I mean, I've had many different case studies, right, where you're going along into later phase manufacturing, and you start kind of getting a peek of what the clinical results look like, right? And you look at them, you're like, man, that does not look good, mm-hmm. right? And then, my first thing as a formulation scientist, I'm gonna look at the formulation, I'm gonna look at the target, right? And if the target and the formulation, don't look right, I mean, you can kind of, portray that the clinical is not going to look too good. So in terms of the formulation side, there's a formulation that we were kind of transferring in, and looking at it, I can say, hey, that's not going to have good resident time in the nose. It's not the right excipients, right? And what ended up happening is just that.
Yeah.
Right? It was rapidly cleared. It didn't have enough efficacy to be compared against other products, right? But in the formulation lab, what we would have done is we would have already known to look at the target. We would have already known, okay, what's the benchmark FDA-approved products, right? All right, let's beat it. We'll select the right excipients using our collective knowledge, right, to develop the formulation to meet that target product profile.
And leveraging things like the nasal cast models, and looking at putting it on a slide and letting it slide down. Is it adhesive at all, right?
Yeah.
And again, really just characterizing the all aspects of the product.
100%. Those extra characterization steps are super important, and there are a lot of things that a lot of CDMOs don't actually do, right? Permeation studies, your mucoadhesive studies, right? These should not be glanced over. And then pairing that with a nasal cast model, right? I mean, there's so many different types, but there are some commercial ones that labs can use other than like custom. But utilizing all that information is really going to help develop your formulation in the lab. And then once it's able to be transferred in for clinical manufacturing, we've already spent the time and effort to develop the best product, right? And so when they go into the clinical manufacturing, they're not going to have a lot of those issues, right?
Yeah, you can really fast track that.
100%, yes.
Again, IND to your point earlier, Ryan.
Yeah. So Matt, just to kind of follow up on something you said. So a lot of CMOs companies, they develop a product to a C of A. Right.
Yeah.
And the C of A is great. That's control, though, right? And we're taking a step back. And if you use high quality ingredients and bake a cake, carefully, it's going to turn out to be a really good cake. If you just throw it all together, put it in the oven, and hope for the best, it's going to come out bad. Same thing here, right? If you don't spend the time to understand where you have bounds and where things have to be very precise, so where you can have a large delta versus a small delta and still get the same product, right? And it's understanding that design space. So it's the whole concept, quality by design.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it in the industry for years.
Still not doing it.
And we're still, we apply it when we want to, right?
Yeah.
And so in essence, quality by design leads to a quality product, and you don't have to worry about the CQAs and all of that because it's inherently going to be there.
Yeah.
It's going to you're actually your specifications and your criteria are going to be more accurate and representative. So
yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I've heard it said before that in a lot of ways, the things that were easy to target, easy to drug, but also easy to formulate, now those were done 10, 20, whatever years ago, right? So, and of course we see over and over that therapies are becoming increasingly more complex, right? Whether again, it's through the kind of variety of different, conjugation technologies that are out there. We see it through ultra high concentration. But as a result of all that, I mean, how would you guys describe how, purely from the formulation perspective, how much more challenging have things gotten versus even just 5 or 10 years ago?
Not really any different. It's maybe easier because technology and science has evolved and improved. And so that's the really cool thing about this line of work is there are always new technologies, new concepts, new ways of looking at things. I think Kymanox has a huge advantage over a lot of formulation groups in our experiences. So for myself, I spent about 7 years working on trying to stabilize amorphous systems to increase bioavailability. So taking poorly soluble drugs and trying to increase solubility by any means necessary. Matt, again, when I first met him, I was like, kindred spirit. His experience is on the, complex lipid, nanoparticles and nano-emulsions for injection. And so something I know about it from a topical standpoint, but when you start talking about, injectable suspensions and emulsions, I mean, this is your guy, right? And so we have a lot of experience on these complex, non-conventional formulation types. And, I would say that should be approached with caution, right? You should never just hop right in and say, I need some crazy technology. Like, you should have keep it simple scientist is always, should be at the forefront of thought.
You changed the KISS acronym there.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Yeah.
And evolve and prove that you need that to achieve your goal. Because then once you have a complex system, then you need to identify a facility that can make it.
Yeah.
And it's not a typical offering at places. So
but
the combination of formulation science and manufacturing technology is actually a lot of fun. And I think the industry has evolved. So
Maybe a question for you, Matt. I mean, how do you see, historically we have had kind of the engineering, manufacturing, quality, regulatory side of the business, and layering in the formulation expertise, and a lot of that from a CMC perspective has been there, but to have it at the executional level, right? To actually have wet space, wet lab space. How does that shift how we can support clients?
Oh, I mean, just even mentioning that, right? That we have that availability, right? I mean, we consult because we're the experts in this space, right? And so we can talk about it. We can lead them to the right place. But now we can actually say, hey, we can actually do the work, right? And we're able to do that.
We can do the quick kind of de-risking, the quick answers.
I mean,
right?
we can do it all, right? I mean, we can the material science aspect we can do, right? The de-risking, right? The full development, right? We can do, and to kind of lead off of what Ryan was saying. I mean, as the science gets better over time, right? Like whether the products get better, the targets get harder, the tools, the equipment, and everything also improves. Right? We end up having there's a lot of different companies that have many different specific functions that we can utilize. Whether that's for oral, transdermal, injectable, nasal, pulmonary, right? There's many different techniques out there, and a lot of these vendors, they want us to use their equipment. Right?
Show the value.
Yeah. So it's really, it's really cool. And you touched on something that'll be our next question. Folks who are still listening, if you're enjoying today's conversation, please subscribe. Right, give us a like and share from wherever you're listening: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Share it with other professionals that in the space. It really helps more folks kind of reach this content. I'm curious, Matt, something that you touched on is this, kind of rapid de-risking or ability to rapidly get an answer, right, when issues pop up, and to kind of have that as a tool in the tool belt. Kind of from both of you, broadly, what in the marketplace made us say, look, we've been a professional services consulting company for a really long time. It is a different business to have. And this was the same thing when we got King of Prussia, right? It is a little bit different business to have brick and mortar. Now you have an investment, you have upkeep and overhead and things like that. So what made us decide to take the jump to open a formulation lab?
So a lot of pleading, but also, the data behind it, right? It makes business sense. So, I've been consulting on formulation issues for over 8.5 years since joining Kymanox. And, as scientists, we're curious. So when problems arise, we ask questions. Did you do this? Have you thought of this? And 99.5% of the time, it's no, right? We either didn't have the time or we didn't have the ability to do that, right? And so that is really the rationale behind all of this. It's educating to move things forward rather than stalling. And, in this financial environment that we're in, investment environment we're in, investors want to be de-risked on a technology from the clinical aspect, but also on the commercialization, industrialization of a product from, an academic concept and into a clinical target, right? Can you make this? Is it stable? When you hear, it's stable for 2 weeks, that's great. That means nothing, right? That means you don't have a viable product, right? Yes. You have to have something that is going to be viable. You don't have to have, 2 years ICH stability going into phase 1, phase 2, but you need to have a path to get there, right? And that's what development is all about, is getting there. And if we can have a year, feel really comfortable with it, and know that we can make these adjustments later on and get there, we'll get there. So that was really the basis behind it is, not being able to act on the curiosities and the questions that arose, working on projects, and finally had a few really good examples that perked the ears of the leaders, the executive leaders within Kymanox, to say, hey, let's give this a shot. And then, again, this is a relationship business, right? And relationship-wise, the opportunity came up. It was kind of a too good to be true situation, and we hopped on it. So I think it's exciting.
Yeah. Matt, what about from your perspective? I mean, again, coming from the contract manufacturing space, like, were there kind of example times where it's frustrating when you're on the intake side, I'm sure, of a process, and you realize, like, hey, this isn't actually developed enough for us.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, if I see a formulation development program that wasn't under a DOE approach, right, where I'm looking at all the different variables in a smart and sophisticated way, right, I know it's not going to be done right. There's not enough information, not enough information to say, hey, this formulation is ready to go, right? This lab allows us to have that space.
So coincidentally, Matt and I met each other in that exact same scenario, where Kymanox was representing a client who was transferring from an established CMO to another established CMO, and the product was developed to meet a C of A.
Yep.
Right. And when we transferred to Matt's lab, questions came.
Yep.
Oh, no, we haven't done that yet. Yes, we knew that was a deficiency, but a risk we were willing to take. Yeah. And you start to see the impact of those risks that you're willing to take come to fruition as being impactful once they get into someone else's hands, because the tribal knowledge is gone.
Yeah, correct. Right? How often do they come up in a tech transfer, right? And
every time.
You've lost tribal knowledge, and again, you developed it to fit exactly what you had. And shocker, you're not doing there's no such thing as 100% like tech transfer. And then you don't have the underlying process knowledge to be able to adapt.
And so to that point, what we're trying to establish here and get people to really buy in on is we're not developing this for us. We're doing this for our clients, and if they want to come in the lab with us and actually get to touch, taste, feel, smell their product, by all means, that's the only way that you can understand what you have is to do that. Looking at pictures does nothing. You have to touch it with a glove on, of course. But and I would probably
all the HSC people listening were dying.
I mean, if you want to taste it, do that on your own time. That's how you do it. I mean, as a true, like someone passionate in formulation, that you have to do it. Right? You have to try it. Usually a placebo, but you're not losing that tribal knowledge. What we're trying to emphasize is that tribal knowledge is retained because the work that we're doing is right in lockstep with the client, right? And they're involved, and then they're taking this with us to the next stage.
It's a partnership, right? We want to emphasize the relationship. I mean, I know everything I can about the formulation development, analytical development, all these things, and the client comes in, they know their molecule, right? Yeah. And so it's important to bridge that knowledge, right? And whether that's coming into the lab and actually seeing the process, looking at the data together, right? Whether it be in person or virtual, right? This is the most, I feel, the most important part of product development.
It's the critical stage, right? If you don't do it right up front, you're just going to keep making those same mistakes. And
the wheels are going to come off somewhere.
Accepting risk along the way, right?
Maybe stepping back for a second, how does this kind of balance with some of the formulation partners that we've historically worked with, right? And kind of what fits in our swim lane, what fits in their swim lane, kind of how do those complement?
It's a great question, and again, look, this is a relationship business, and Kymanox as a consulting company that builds relationships, it's super important. So formulation development and analytical characterization is not our core business. Right? This is a passion of ours that we are now a service offering for our clients because we can do it and we want our clients to be successful and have this as an option. But this isn't what's driving our financial success. It's all of our other core service areas, right? So having someone specialized in the biologic characterization, that's great. It saves us a lot of time, money, and problem, right? So if we have a partner that we can go to every time and say, hey, client X, these guys do it right every time.
Yeah.
They're going to help on this side for your particular molecule because we don't have the capability to handle a oligonucleotide or something. And we'll continue to leverage those. We're focused right now on more of the small molecule, easy to handle, nothing potent yet. Nothing too crazy in terms of manufacturing technology. Most of it is either simple solution or suspension. But Kymanox's commitment to our partners and to just our community is we always have made an investment in what our clients need, regardless of what that was. Right?
Yeah.
You mentioned the Numa acquisition.
Yeah.
We did that to better serve our clientele. We're doing this to better serve our clientele.
Yeah. And then ultimately in King of Prussia, right, we built out clinical phase device assembly because it was a gap in the space. Right? It was finding a contract manufacturer that was interested in building 200 devices, right?
Yeah.
In the same way, finding a CMO, CDMO who, it's interesting in that landscape because the commercial side of CDMOs is growing like crazy, right? Super large volume, that's all over the news. The development side is doing the exact opposite, right? Finding someone who can do some wet lab bench work for you is getting more difficult.
It shuts down the systems, right? The systems aren't designed for one-offs and manual iterations and I need to make 15 of these, 200 of these. Yeah. Again, it's designed for throughput and for control. A lot of companies are moving away from paper-based systems to electronic systems. Yeah. And when you have to have manual processes, that kind of upsets the automated systems.
Yeah, definitely. So looking ahead and kind of certainly curious from both of you guys, and maybe Matt, we'll start with you. What trends do you think are going to have the biggest impact on formulation development? You touched on kind of new technologies that are coming out. We touched on a lot of different, delivery systems and kind of modalities. But what do you think is going to have the biggest impact over the next couple of years?
Biologics. Biologics is going through different conferences, right? Ones that are more specialized, even nasal or pulmonary, right? Spray dried biologics is really at the forefront. It's spray drying in general, right? Yep. Things that it's a much more stable, right? You're able to have a much larger access across the world, right? Because of storage conditions, right? And so they're starting to kind of look into biologics as being kind of the forefront.
So do you think we're going to see like some technology emerge in terms of because whenever I think of that, I think of the kind of the engineering manufacturing challenge to scale that, right? So, do you see the same thing? Do you think there's a kind of is there a gap there for someone to come span that from an engineering technology offering in the space?
For sure.
Yeah. So free business idea, right?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of hot, spray drying biologics at a larger scale. The issue is sterility and maintaining a clean environment, sterility assurance along the way, but especially when you're spray drying out powder. So it was hot and heavy. Probably 10 or so years ago, wasn't a lot of movement. So companies pivoted away from it. But I definitely see it coming back, especially with the need for high concentration. Antibodies and things like that. Increasing concentration in your standard injection vehicle is not the answer to high concentration. We've seen that and the impacts that has on viscosity. So,
All right. Excellent. Well, Ryan, Matt, thanks again for coming on the show. Ryan, thanks as always. And Matt, we'll certainly have you around for future episodes. So it's been really good getting to hear from you guys on a formulation development perspective and really leveraging all your experience. So as we discussed today, decisions that are made during early formulation development can influence everything from stability to manufacturing, tech transfer, and ultimately for commercial success. So taking the time, taking the effort to take a thoughtful, science-driven approach early can help reduce risk and avoid costly development delays. So thanks everyone for listening to the Life Science Solutions podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, again, please subscribe and share it with colleagues who work kind of across the formulation development, CMC, manufacturing, quality, and regulatory spaces. And until next time, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in to Life Science Solutions. presented by Kymanox and produced by Walk West. For more insights like this, subscribe and follow Life Science Solutions wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next time as we continue exploring what it takes to bring life science innovation to life, because patients deserve better.